we go.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to a new Quran study. Today, God willing, we're gonna read from Surah number 14, Abraham, verse 6. I seek refuge in God from Satan, the rejected,
Oh,
in the
sorry,
name
one
of God.
second. Sorry. Oh, go, go.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to a new Quran study. And God willing, today we're gonna read from Surah 14, Ibrahim, verse 6. And seek refuge in God from Satan, the rejected, and in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Verse 6. The importance of being appreciative. Recall that Moses said to his people, remember God's blessings upon you. He saved you from Pharaoh's people, who inflicted the worst persecution upon you, slaughtering your sons and sparing your daughters. That was an exacting trial from your Lord. We see here in this verse that um, God is reminding us that we should always be thankful to Him. So here we see that Moses tells his people to, stop and think about the amazing things that God did for them in the past, especially how, He saved them from Pharaoh and his persecution. And by remembering this terrible time, um, it increased their faith to God alone and everything. Um, and this um, should teach us, to do the same, you know, because it helps us realize that our freedom and safety that we have now are a huge gifts, mashallah. So we should learn, always to, look back at, our difficult times in the past and see how God brought us through and never forget that everything good we have now, comes from Him. So, mashallah, that, keeps our faith strong and humble. Appreciative versus unappreciative. Your Lord has decreed, the more you thank me, the more I give you. But if you turn unappreciative, then my retribution is severe. So, mashallah, God says, the more you thank me, the more I give you. So, this is a beautiful guarantee from God, you know. So, making gratitude a key that brings more blessings. So, it means that when we, actively say thank you, by our words or thoughts or our, you know, um, acting good. So God does not just notice it, He acts on His promise, by increasing, good things in our life, mashallah. Um, and He said, if you turn unappreciative, here, you know, um, simply means you stop noticing it or stop caring about the good things God, has given you. So this is more than just forgetting to say thank you. It's an attitude, of being bland to blessings or complaining about what you don't have instead of, focusing on valuing what you have. It shows a lack of respect, for the giver, which is God, mashallah. Um, so God says, then my retribution is severe. So it means that the punishment or the consequences from God will be very strong, you know, and serious. Because this punishment is not just about physical pain. It can mean also removing the very blessings that you taken for granted, like health, wealth, or peace. Or it could mean facing difficulties in life or having a heavy punishment later on. So being unappreciative is a very dangerous mistake we should be aware of as a submitter to God alone. Mashallah. 8. Moses said, if you disbelieve, along with all the people on earth, God is in no need, praiseworthy. So here we see that Moses is telling his people that, their belief is for their own good, not for God. you know. Even if every single person on earth decided to deny God, it will not help, hurt or affect God, in any way, mashallah. So he doesn't need us, he doesn't need our prayers or our worship or our submission, to exist or to be powerful. No, praise God. He doesn't need it. So when we worship, we are benefiting ourselves, our souls, and this removes any idea that God, forces us to worship out of need, mashallah. So he's simply the one who deserves praise from everyone, you know, regardless of what people choose to do, mashallah. So it's a great reminder for his creatures. 9. Egotistic defiance, a human trait. Have you not heard about those before you? The people of Noah, Ad, Thamud, and others who came after them, unknown only to God. Their messengers went to them with clear proofs, but they treated them with contempt and said, we disbelieve in what you are sent with. We are skeptical about your message, full of doubt. So here we see that God is talking about um, a main problem with human being, which is having a big ego. As a human, we know that we have ego, and that's why we are here. And this verse, talking about it. So this means that these creatures, the human being, think that they are the most important. I mean, the smartest, and that they already, know everything. They think that they are better than they really are. So because of that, when a messenger or the truth comes to them, that forces them to admit that they might be wrong, you know, and or that they need to change their life. That's the issue. They don't want it. They don't want to accept that they are wrong or they need to change. And so the ego cannot handle it, they cannot handle that they make a mistake or they are being weak, so they choose to fight back by, defying the truth. The verse says, here that they were skeptical and full of doubt. So, so this is just a mask, you know. They don't want to accept the proof. So they hide behind the excuses of, like, oh, I'm not sure, or I need more evidence, like this. So even when the proof is clear, so they use this doubt to justify their, refusal to change. Because we see here the examples that the verse gave, the past groups, mentioned like Ad and Tammuz. So are examples that God uses to show, you know, those people who have the same issue, how they faced, the consequences, you know, of their behavior. So when you stubbornly choose your ego over the clear truth, it always leads to, bad consequences. You lose your way and you lose God's help, God's guidance, and obviously you will end up doomed. So the ego is very, very tricky, and uh, as a human being, we should fight it in order to be safe. 10. Following our parents blindly. A great human tragedy. Their messenger said, do you have doubts about God, the initiator of the heavens and the earth? He invites you only to forgive your sins and to give you another chance to redeem yourselves. They said, you are no more than humans like us who want to repel us from the way our parents used to worship. Show us some profound authority. So, mashallah, after we, you know, studied the ego, the human being, problem. Here, there is another problem, Um, it's a tragic mistakes, you know, people when people choose to, to listen to their dead parents instead of listening to the living truth from God. So they made following like traditions, more important than, following God, following the guidance to save themselves and getting God's forgiveness. And as we see in a verse, when the messengers came with clear message of, like a fresh start, by giving a chance to, wipe out their mistakes, and follow the guidance. So here we see the people, got scared and angry. They thought like this, like, wait a minute, this is a new message that tells us the way our parents' worship was wrong, like that. That's how they think. So because they really like their traditions, they really like their comfort of doing what their parents did. That's why they refuse. So it's very big tragedy. Mashallah, God mentioned this to give us awareness of how humans, uh, weakness, so we can be careful. Um, Next verse, 11. Their messengers said to them, we are no more than humans like you, but God blesses whomever he chooses from among his servants. We could not possibly show you any kind of authorization except in accordance with God's will. In God, the believers should trust. They should. Why should we not trust in God when He has guided us in our paths? We will steadfastly persevere in the face of your persecution. In God, all the trusters should trust. Um, so, so here we see that the messengers are talking to these people, but they are talking like very gentle and very with kindness and with big faith. So we see when they said like like we are just humans. We are just normal humans. Reminding them that we are not better than you or anything, just clarifying with humbleness to these people with big egos. So they said we are just humans. We like just but God picked us, just to deliver his message. So they also told the people they could only, show proof, or miracles only if God wanted them to. So they don't have any power or anything better than, they just people imagine. They are just messengers. It's just um working for God. So then here we see that they asked, why would we not trust God? You know, He showed us the right way already. That's how they say, because they um yeah, here we see that they um promised they would stay already, steadfast and patient, mashallah, even if the people treat them badly, because their final rule is simple. People who truly believe, must trust in God, must put all their hope and trust only in God. Mashallah. It's like they felt that they're gonna be persecuted. That's why they increase their faith by saying this, mashallah. And we're gonna see this in the next verse, 13. Those who disbelieved said to their messengers, we will banish you from our land unless you revert to our religion. Their Lord inspired them. We will inevitably annihilate, annihilate the transgressors, and we will let you dwell in their land after them. This is the reward for those who reverence my majesty and reverence my promise. So, mashallah, we see in the previous verse that messengers have a great faith, great trust in God, against those people. But we see how those people refuse the truth. They refuse the truth, and finally they give up on arguing. And what they did is worse. They made it very clear, like it's like threatening the messengers. You know, it's like saying either you go back to worship our old way, or we will force you out of our home, country, means banishing you. And it's it this unfortunately shows, they felt powerless against the truth actually. So they used force, and violence instead of just arguing and stuff. That's that's I mean out of their weakness actually to use the force. So mashallah, we see here God responds, you know. to their messengers by inspiring them out of his kindness. Like he said to them, we will inevitably annihilate the transgressors, you know. So, mashallah, God always with the believers, always with the messengers, believers. Um, he inspired them, that don't worry, we will surely and completely destroy those people who are being, like this, cruel and, you know, going too far, like transgressors. So, mashallah, when the believers, it's a lesson for us, to trust always in God. When we face, treat from people, um, they receive, we will receive, comfort from God, a promise of complete victory and, destruction of their enemies. It's a God system in Quran and everything, so we should always be, uh, trust in Him and not fear our enemies. And it's also teach us that even when we face life or death streets, um, God has, always, a plan, and He will defend righteous, mashallah. 15. They issued a challenge, and consequently every stubborn tyrant ended up doomed. Awaiting him is hell, where he will drink putrid water. He will gulp it down, though he cannot stand it, as death comes to him from every direction, but he will never die. Waiting him is a terrible retribution. The footnote says, when we rebelled against God and agreed with Satan during the great flood, the angels suggested that we should be banished to hell, but the most merciful decided to give us another chance to redeem ourselves. He said to the angels, I know what you do not know. God knew that many humans would have protested that they had no idea how bad hell was. The awesome description of hell in verse 14:17 and in 22:19-22 nullifies such a protest. Now we have a pretty good idea how terrible hell is. MashaAllah. Okay, so I'm going to verse 15. So they issued a challenge, and consequently every stubborn tyrant ended up doomed. So we see here, those disbelievers who refused the truth made their final decision, and as a consequence, they were told they had, gone too far, and that every stubborn who challenged God will be, uh, you know, uh, ended up or completely doomed. And God is, He mentioned hell, their terrible fate is hell. So where they will be forced to, drink rotten water and stuff, it's very specific description that describe how terrible hell is, very detailed. So here we see that punishment, will be so intense, you know, um, that they will feel like they are, like dying all the time, imagine dying all the time. So yet they will, of course, never actually die. So as a terrible non-stop, pain, you know, that's what. what will waste them, you know. So this very um awful description, you know, is given so that no person can ever, you know, say they did not know how serious, you know, the consequences are for, you know, choosing ego and evil, you know, or, you know, the truth over the God's message or God's guidance, mashallah. So here it's very clear. The footnotes explain it very well. So people have no excuse. 18. The allegory of those who disbelieve in their Lord, their works are like ashes in a violent wind on a stormy day. They gain nothing from whatever they earn, such is the farthest strain. So, so here it's clear that all you know good or hard work done by those people who reject you know God's revelations and God's message is you know nullified, is worthless in the end. So they get nothing you know from what they earned. Um, um, and that's itself it's you know a big failure for those people you know to just work on something very hard and in the end you find out that oh it doesn't mean anything you know you just waste your energy your money your life everything you know and that's itself a very hard feeling you know to find out in the end. um Worship only the omnipotent one. 19. Do you not realize that God has created the heavens and the earth for a specific purpose? If He wills, He can remove you and substitute a new creation in your place. This is not too difficult for God. MashaAllah. Very important reminder, you know, here, this verse, very important. Um, this is a message from God, you know, it's telling us that God is the omnipotent one. So it means he owns everything, you know. He doesn't need anything else. And he also can replace us easily. That's a very important fact that should make us feel, you know, humble and understand, you know, how small we are and, you know, instead of you know like feeding our egos and stuff like these people who you know these believers did this should remind them like you are nothing compared to God, you are nothing. You should be very humble and understand your reality, you know, you are very 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 small, you know, and we can be replaced very easily, you know, and this encourage us to you know also fulfill our purpose before you know our time ends, mashallah. um on the day of resurrection, 21, when they all stand before God, the followers will say to the leaders, we used to follow you, can you spare us even a little bit of God's retribution? They will say, had God guided us, we would have guided you. Now it's too late. Whether we grieve or resort to patience, there is no exit for us. The footnote says, frequently the Quran talks about the hereafter in the past tense. This is because those are future events already witnessed by God and will surely come to pass. Mhm. So, so here, mashallah, this verse is talking about a tragic scene on the day of resurrection, and it focuses on the main idea that no human can save another human, So when all, are judged, we see that the followers will turn to the leaders who misled them, and they are here begging, begging them for rescue from God's punishment, you know, and this reminds them of their blind obedience on earth that they did for those leaders. However, the leaders here we see that they are now helpless, weak, very weak, um, and they will confess that if they had been rightly guided themselves, they would have guided their followers, you know. But now the time of changing or what is called correcting their action is over, you know. So no more chance to do anything right now. Just face the conclusion that it's too late. You know. Thank God we have the Quran, we have everything in front of us. God reminds us of everything we need to correct ourselves before this before facing this day. That's I mean, a mercy from Him. Satan disowns his followers. 22. And the devil will say, after the judgment had been issued, God has promised you the truthful promise, and I promised you, but I broke my promise. I had no power over you. I simply invited you, and you accepted my invitation. Therefore, do not blame me, and blame only yourselves. My complaining cannot help you, or can your complaining help me? I have disbelieved in your idolizing me. The transgressors have incurred a painful retribution. So, mashallah, so this is very powerful. This verse is, one of the most powerful, um, shocking scenes of the hereafter, where Satan here officially, I mean, we can say officially, official, officially, he officially disowns, and betrays his followers by revealing, the truth behind his invitation. You know, um, Satan was never truly powerful as they think. So after here we see that um, Satan talks, to his followers by start saying like, "Oh, God promised you the truthful promise, and I promised you." Like for example, success, wealth, power, but I lied and broke my promise. So he now he revealed his truth, to his followers, um, which is I had no power over you. I simply invited you, and you accepted my invitation. So here he admits that he could not force anyone, to do wrong. So it's not by force. And also, He told them directly that do not blame me and blame only yourselves. My complaining or yours cannot help either of us now. You know. So this is the biggest, ultimate betrayal. Um, you know, proving his mission was only, to deceive, nothing else. No success, no power, nothing that he promised was true or real. He just he was successful to deceive his followers. Not by force, just by his tactics. Um. So, and here we see he end up by saying, "I have disbelieved in your idolizing me." So here we see that he, rejects any form of worship they gave him, and he, left his followers completely alone. You know, imagine, you can imagine them, being shocked. So, so the lesson here is that people, are held responsible, for choosing to follow the invitation of, Satan. And on the day of resurrection, Satan will provide no help, no comfort, no defense for those who, accepted his lies. Next verse, 23. As for those who believe and lead a righteous life, they will be admitted into gardens with flowing streams. They abide therein forever, in accordance with the will of their Lord. Their greeting therein is peace. MashaAllah, always God, by His mercy, when He mentioned the fate of disbelievers and how terrible it is, He always, follow it with the, the beautiful contrast of this punishment, describing, uh, you know, um, the beautiful reward for the righteous believers. So, the reward is eternal peace. Imagine peace for eternity. Um, and this, highlights the complete difference between the fire and the pain that gonna waste the wicked, and eternal comfort, beauty, and security and peace that waits, those who choose to, submit completely to God alone and work righteousness and follow the message and kill their ego to save himself, in order to live in peaceful eternal life. Inshallah. 24. Truth versus falsehood. Do you not see that God has cited the example of the good word as a good tree whose root is firmly fixed and its branches are high in the sky? It produces its crop every season, as designed by its Lord. God thus cites the examples for the people that they may take heed. And the example of the bad word is that of a bad tree chopped at the soil level. It has no roots to keep it standing. God strengthens those who believe with the proven word in this life and in the hereafter, and God sends the transgressors astray. Everything is in accordance with God's will. Beautiful. MashaAllah, I like this verses. Beautiful. So, MashaAllah, here we see the comparison between the two trees is meant to show us clearly what happens when you choose the truth or the falsehood. So here, the good word means believing in God alone, Is like a huge, healthy tree that has roots that go deep into the ground. And because of the roots are deep, the tree, of course, cannot be uh, knocked down by any storm or doubts. So this means true faith is solid and unshakable. And high branches that go high into the sky symbolize, that this truth elevates, the believers and, um, connects them to the heavens, connects them to God, mashallah, high. And the constant fruits means good deeds. So the tree gives fruits all the time, right? So, and this means that when you have, true faith, um, it consistently produce good things, um, helpful actions, righteous actions, blessings in your life, in your soul, benefiting everyone around you, benefiting your soul, everything, mashallah, is very um, um, productive, in a good way. Um, and the bad tree symbolized the weakness, of falsehood. So the bad word, which means disbelief or lies, it's like a added uh, stamp that has no roots. So no roots means no foundation, since it has nothing holding it up. It has no power and no real life. It doesn't. It I mean, it can't grow. You know, it can't give fruits, and it's easily um, exposed to falls. I mean, sorry, to fall. And that means lies and disbelief, uh, will not last in the end. So God, mashallah, here uses this allegor- alleg- allegorical description by giving this beautiful example, to strain the truth and to keep the believers firm and safe in this life and in hereafter. While those who choose to rebel and disbelieve are left without any foundation. So the fate of both the groups will be completely controlled by God's will, mashallah. 28. They removed their families from God's protection. Have you noted those who responded to God's blessings by disbelieving and thus brought disaster upon their own families? Hell is their destiny, wherein they burn. What a miserable end. Um, Here we see a very strong, warning about responsibility and influence. So our choice to follow or reject God does not just affect us, it um, defines the fate of our entire family, those who, you know, um, so, so for example, a disaster brought, upon a family by a disbelieving for a person, for example, is that, you know, his choice to reject God's blessing, you know, uh, and remove, you know, uh, protection and safety and security from his family, but by putting them out of God's kingdom, and placing them under the dark and under the control of, or the influence of Satan's kingdom, you know. And this bad example fills the house, with confusion, with sin, with, leading the whole family towards, both misery in this life and uh, shared eternal punishment in the hereafter. So we should be careful. Idol worship, the mother of all evil. 30. They set up rivals to rank with God and to divert others from his path. Say, enjoy for a while. Your final destiny is hell. Um, this verse is also a warning, Um, s- placing anything or anyone on the same level as God means idol worship, So this is the source of all evil, God says, and while this path may offer temporary enjoyment or false power, it leads with uh, absolute, eternal, and painful end of hell. Yeah. So God is telling the people to value the message, to value the truth, the guidance that God gives them, and you know, uh, and the eternal consequences over any short-term pleasure that they can obtain from rejecting Him. The last verse I'm gonna read today, uh, crucial crucial commandments. 31. Exhort my servants who believe to observe the contact prayers, salat, and to give the charity from our provisions to them, secretly and publicly, before a day comes where there is neither trade nor nepotism. So, so here we see, um, in this verse, it's talking about uh, something that we need to do urgently, and which is believing in God, immediately. So God commands believers to immediately, strictly, um, believe in God, maintain the contact prayer, salat, and to sincerely give charity to God and stay righteousness, um, both in private and public. So why, because the reason for this urgency that God commands is to, the warning that the day of judgment is coming, for sure, because on that day, there will be no way to pay, for example, a bribe, or anything. Um, so, and also it will be no power, uh, uh, like for example, some people use their power for a friend or family member or something, So there will be no nepotism, no powerful friend or family member will be able to help in any way. So only yourself, only what you did, only your good deeds that um, uh, are the only thing that will matter in the end. By following God, being righteousness, and reject all kind of idol worship, that only can save our souls in on that day. MashaAllah. That's why God commands us to, it's like an urgent thing to do is to follow Him and His commandments in order to be saved before it's too late. MashaAllah. With this, I will end here. And mashallah, if you have any questions or comments, feel free. And thank you for listening, mashallah.
MashaAllah, thank you very much. Great study.
Mashallah. Thank you.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Good study. Thank you.
Mashallah.
MashaAllah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, in this world, if you have some money, you can easily get away with it, very easily. Even in the United States, you can, if you're in jail, you have $1 million. You can give it to the president, and he can pardon you. But imagine, um, in the hereafter, God says, even if God says an earth full of gold, even twice as much, if someone owned, that will not be accepted from them to get away from the eternal confinement that awaits all the disbelievers. It's really because people can think that they can get away with things. In this world, we see people doing all kinds of illegal things. Cheating, robbery, adultery, anything, murder, and if they use their wealth, or whatever, these things, they can escape, the prison time or whatever. But in the hereafter, all of this thing, they're not even going to have access to any of it, first of all. And even God says, even if they did, they would not be. It would not be accepted from them in any way. So this also shows to us, mashallah, how like God says, how valuable it is to have the guidance, how important it is to have the faith in God. I mean, imagine all these people that we read about that um, decided to disbelieve and rebel and show their defiance, their big egos that cause them to argue against God's revelations. I mean, what good does it serve them, And at the end, one should think that the retribution they end up in, and leaving, this wonderful chance that God had given us to fix ourselves. I mean, was that really worth it at the end? Was it worth it really? This much to please your ego to the point that you're disobeying God? I mean, wouldn't it be better if you just be a bit hard on yourself and just kill your ego and accept? But subhanAllah, I mean, God's system is so perfect. God knows exactly what every soul deserves. And, you know, if there is a wicked soul, I mean, God will never allow them. I mean, not that God doesn't want them to, right? But God knows that which souls are worthy of redemption and which souls aren't. And they're just, because of obviously their own consequences, because their own actions, these consequences that happen to them, they're not able to believe. I mean, and they fail the tests. When God alone is advocated. All these people, they worship idols besides God, or follow some other sources besides God. And these people that um, followed their parents, blindly, whether dead or alive. I mean, they couldn't trust in God. That okay, so what if your parents believed a certain way, right? I mean, can't God, can't you trust in God to guide you to the right path if they're not on the right path? Like, what makes these people believe that they're on the right path? For example, people who are worshiping these idols, these powerless human beings, they elevated them to the status of God. I mean, what makes them believe um, these things other than the fact that their parents and their forefathers were doing this? And we see the same human traits over and over, but eventually, obviously, none of this is worth it. I mean, we are egotistic creatures. I mean, we have to remember that our egos are are there. I mean, we have to acknowledge it in order to be able to fight it. And we have to continue to ask God for His guidance. And like, mashallah, I like how you said that, we are so small and insignificant creatures. We don't realize how small and powerless we are. Like, this human being thinks that he's somebody, and so arrogant and full of ego. But we don't realize how powerful God is. We forget about God. I mean, we're so hung up in our own egos that we forget who God is. Mashallah, another thing I wanted to comment about was the earlier verses we read about being appreciative. I mean, God says, the more you thank me, the more I give you. And so it is very important for us to remember to be appreciative as much as possible. The verse 6 says the importance of being appreciative, subtitle. And God says, the more you thank me, the more I give you. So we have to remember to thank God. I mean, it's very easy. We feel that it's, oh yeah, we thank God. But believe me, like, I think that we can thank God a lot more than we actually do. I mean, imagine when you're eating something or drinking something, like thanking God every time for what He has given us and the flavors and the things that we enjoy, the blessings we have from God. It's very important. It's very easy to for a human being to become unappreciative, and just complain, complain, complain all the time, and just be miserable. God has given us a formula for happiness, and this is one of the biggest things to remember, and it's common sense. That when you are appreciative, you count your blessings. You're gonna forget about the things that you want to complain about. It's gonna take away your attention, and um, it's gonna. Well, I mean, and I don't want to be all scientific here. Not that I'm an expert in this area, but I mean, from the little stuff that I've seen or read about, like you're changing your brain chemistry, and changing your body, your mindset, your circuits in your brain when you do that, when you thank God. Um, and it changes you in many ways, like more than we can realize. Like um, just being appreciative, and then we read about trusting in God. I mean, all of these things, right? I mean, God is telling us to do. If we actually do these things, just doing them internally, even if it was just like someone's made up belief, for example. Of course, we know it's not, right? But just from the point of logic, like if you made up this belief, I mean, that alone, will make you change so much. Obviously, God has set up these laws, so He's the one who controls everything, right? But based on these these principles, when you trust in God and rely on Him, when you appreciate Him, all these things automatically, you know, push you in the direction of success and happiness and contentment and peace. But we see it's not even just that. I mean, we know that God actually will change the outcomes in your favor on top of it, you know, and make things happen for you, give you more, for example, when you're appreciative, help you, give you success when you actually trust in Him, you know. It could be completely out of your control, which it always is, anyways, because God is the one who controls everything, right? But from an outsider's perspective, it may look like someone else is making a decision, right? But we know ultimately God is the one who makes the decision, and He will uh, grant us the victory. And I think this example that uh, we read about Moses here, right, and his people. I mean, this is a very good example um, for us, for Moses' people, right? Because they have to remember they were they were reminded of the fact that they were being ruled by a tyrant who was so oppressive, you know, and was killing their children, was slaughtering their families, imagine. And but it was a trial from God. God says it was a trial from God, and God says when He sends messengers, He allows these things to happen so people can implore and turn to God, and then God delivers those people who trust in Him. Inshallah. And well, I don't know if anybody else has any comment, but I have one more comment actually. Uh, I wanted to comment also about verse 13. It says, "Those who disbelieved said to their messengers, 'We will banish you from our land unless you revert to our religion.'" So yeah, it's like he wanted, they wanted him deported, from their country or their land, right? If they didn't believe as them, you know. And I mean, what does how does that help these people? I mean, what are they thinking that by banishing him from the land, like you will get rid of? I mean, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Imagine if someone's trying to guide you to God's path. I mean, okay, if you don't want to listen to this person, fine, just go do your own thing. No, you wanna remove this person from your land, so you don't have anybody telling you you're doing something wrong. So that shows a lot of ego in this case. And but God says, uh, we will let you dwell in their lands after them. And this is what happened with the people of Moses too. I mean, he let them dwell in their lands while these people were drowned. You know, so this is God's um, God's plan and His system always. Um, that if you're believing in God and you're doing what God tells you to do and you trust in Him, this is a reminder for us that if you're faced with a situation, for example, like with the people of Pharaoh who were being slaves or were oppressed by these people, it doesn't matter how powerful his armies were and how big his palace was and everything. I mean, eventually, for God it's very easy. He just drove them to the ocean, towards the sea. I mean, and drown them. And so for God to bring your enemy down, it's very easy. And we just have to continue to be steadfast and continue to be appreciative and continue to trust in Him for God, to help us in these ways.
MashaAllah. Yeah, verse 7 is very important. Because most people, I think, they're not just unappreciative for their blessings and stuff, but they're unappreciative for their creation. Like their soul, their like not just their life, but they don't appreciate even having having their soul's existence. I guess
Mm.
or like taking it's like taking their I guess their life for granted.
Yeah. I mean, this life is a chance for us, the final chance for us that God has given us. I mean, God could have put people in hell directly, right?
Yeah,
And
and
God
it
says,
makes sense, like how they lose their soul. Like the people that end up in hell, like they lose God, which is like we need God to exist. So like the verse says, worship only the omnipotent one. Most people, I mean, I guess like the more we reflect on this, it's really crazy to disbelieve, like, because you're almost not just disbelieving in God, but it's like people are disbelieving in their own the soul in Him who created it. They're not recognizing like they're even consciousness, their eyesight, all these things were just given to them, and they just didn't haphazardly. They didn't create it themselves. Like
mm-hmm,
they do have these like atheistic philosophers who are dead now, but like say these stupid or silly things like, oh, I can speak things into existence and stuff, etc. It's kind of funny, but yeah, this is like I think in one of the later surahs, I like it. It says that we showed him the two past, and he's either appreciative or unappreciative. And the messenger talked about this. It's like the believer and disbeliever. Appreciative for God's mercy. Because sometimes it's hard to. I mean, because that knowledge
mm-hmm,
is obscured with the body. Like billions of years ago, when we committed that crime, it's. I mean, if we really think about it, I mean, it's hard to think about, like, because we don't recall it, but it was really, I mean, a horrendous crime. Like the messenger writes, it was a gross blasphemy. It was the original sin. Um, and then to have this chance to worship God is really a huge privilege. Even to believe in God, because I think uh, one of y'all were saying earlier, the guidance. I think you were saying that the guidance is being appreciative for the guidance is over like money is so much more valuable. Yeah, because as you mentioned, you you can't um you can't buy your way out. There's not going to be any ransom or trade on the day of judgment. Like the messenger said, the believing in God is better than owning everything, and the earth's even twice as much. I think he said all the real estate in Hong Kong, but I mean it's more than that. I think he said.
Inshallah. That's right. Yeah, imagine if you owned like all of Manhattan, like you said, you know. I mean, you would be so rich
Yeah,
just
you'd
if
be
you own.
super rich.
Mm-hmm.
Like just thinking
Definitely.
of God and like how he's controlling the planets like Saturn and Jupiter and Neptune. And I mean, he knows what's going on. Like there's that huge, I think we've seen pictures of Jupiter. Like there's that
Mm-hmm.
huge eye. There's like it's literally it's like a super hurricane. Like it's larger than I
Mm-hmm.
think the Earth, and it's like a storm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a powerful storm. And I mean, he's like
Mm-hmm.
knows what's going on at the center of that storm, and yet and at the same time he's aware of like all the birds and the provisions and I mean
Mm-hmm.
and it just doesn't stop there. It's like that's just like things within our solar system. And I mean, you could go on like this forever and just like marvel at these things. And this makes sense like why people worship Jesus, because they don't know God. Uh, they don't know God, and therefore I don't think they can be appreciative or at these things. So and even like they you tell them, like Christians or people I've spoken to from that are close to me, I'm like, well, think about the galaxies and these things. I mean, just one galaxy, and then they're like I don't I think it's like something like blocking them from wrapping their head around like that. Okay, Jesus, Muhammad, Saint Mary, they're not even here. I mean, how could I mean, it makes sense like the level of blasphemy, as we're told, how idol worship is the mother of all evil. And especially because there's other people. I mean, imagine like somebody wanting to divert you from the path of eternal happiness, that's praising and worshiping God. Like these people are so bad. They're like your
Mm-hmm.
enemies. Like because they would want to see you. I mean, knowingly or not knowingly, they're inviting you to hell instead of like the path of God, the most praiseworthy, and the path of like eternal happiness. And then plus like the other verses in the Quran that says if it was like if everything would be corrupted, like the falsehood, as we read about the truth and the falsehood, how the falsehood, it doesn't last, it vanishes. Like it's it has no root. So like whatever these people are proclaiming or worshiping or doing, it's just baseless. And it's always going to be that way. Until and then on the day of judgment, as we know, that's when maybe I'm not remembering exactly correctly, but like all inevitably, I think it says that the falsehood will vanish. Um, mashallah, yeah, a lot of good verses. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
good verses here. Sorry about the background noise. I'm driving right now.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
Yeah, mashallah. Just one more thing, like how we read, we're given reassurance by God that like the people that commit these evil acts, and like we see especially happening. I mean, as you mentioned, brother, like it's prevalent. They won't ever succeed, even if it seems like it, because like if we look back at the time of Moses, like man, like there was Pharaoh and his army, and it was just Moses and relatively speaking, just a few people. I mean, it was more than a few people, but like the proportion was, I mean, and then they had their weapons, their schemes, their soldiers, they had their mansions or strongholds, and I mean, but like God completely wiped them out. So like it's always been the case.
Yeah.
And
In a
so it's
matter
so
of
reassuring
minutes.
that yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's amazing. So
SubhanAllah.
yeah, it's like reassuring that that this evil that we see happening. I mean too, if we're not careful, like it can be very I mean it is like some of the things very enraging. But we also know that there's everything is happening in accordance with God's will, and
Yeah, I mean, gross injustice, as God says, there's gross injustice, right?
yeah.
You see gross
I mean, it's so
injustice.
bad what they're doing to people, like these criminals, like ICE. I mean, it's getting to the point where like people are. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to say what I'm.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it's
I'm
the
just
fact that, for example, like, if you, like, there's people I mean, they're torturing these people in the name of, for example, saying they're criminals. Or and then you have actual criminals, the real criminals, where they're just taking money from them and setting them free from jails. So
yeah,
and actually
like these
people who are innocent and poor, they're throwing them in jails. Imagine, because they're
right,
poor, and
exactly.
and
They're
then
throwing
you
the good
have the
people in
people.
jail.
Yeah.
And then I was explaining to somebody, and I kind of convinced her, I think, but uh, showed her some stuff. But I was like, like the current administration is letting like drug cartel members. I mean, Sinaloa cartel, like inviting them in, and then they lie. I mean, their schemes are so like getting so cracked open and busted open by most people. Like people aren't falling for it, except people that are just like really ignorant, or like it was really well said in the study, like their egos, like it's kind of at the point now with these people's know how bad it
Ego.
is, MAGA and all these things, and
Yeah.
like it's almost like their egos preventing.
Yeah.
I like that video you did send me of that lady, because she had to like this is an example of her killing her ego, how she like left MAGA and like went to her family, like. But a lot of people cannot do that because I mean, if you look how much it stirred her up, but she did it, left that satanic cult. I mean, so this is a lesson, really for all of us. Like this is what traps people,
Yeah. Not to mention, there's a group of people who call themselves submitters and they're still supporting them.
yeah, that's insane.
But
Yeah, I mean,
mashallah, I
imagine
mean,
like they set like those people set the worst examples. Like I mean, imagine like if I was coming into submission and you're supporting, a person that is, I mean, just
yeah.
check the entire list of all the most evil things about it, and there's proof. There's no denying. Like it's not like it's just, and they continue to.
Yeah. I think if you're gonna support someone like that, like you might as well support Osama bin Laden and all the other Hitler and all the
Right.
other
Yeah.
Arabs on earth. Pharaoh too.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
You should. But yeah, subhanAllah. I mean, and also all of these things are being done by Satan, and Satan is still duping these people by creating chaos, basically, because the smoke is around the corner, and God's victory is near. With submission, which is about to prevail very quickly, and so Satan is really trying his best, with these things also to try to destroy, you know, um, any
Yeah, that makes
trace of.
sense. Right? It's kind of like if like you're running out of time,
Mm-hmm.
like you're gonna try your hardest to just like
Mm-hmm.
sabotage everything. Like work overtime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of an example, like how there's applicable examples like
Yeah.
how people,
Yeah.
like oh they see the clock ticking, like okay, let me hurry and just start
Yeah.
trashing everything.
Uh. Yeah.
But I mean, even though we know like he's not omnipotent and he misses things, like the example of the Quran's mathematical secret that was hidden, right below. So he doesn't. I mean, we also shouldn't underestimate his power. The messenger talked about. I think this is one of the mistakes, like the ego and stuff. That we also thought the test would be easy, but we also, I think, underestimated like his ability to
Manipulate
like
people.
craftiness and stuff. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
manipulate people, and like a lot of Christian, like perfect example, Christians
Mm-hmm.
think they can go head on with Satan because
Mm-hmm.
they're high behind a cross and cast out demons, and then they think they can like do battle with him.
Yeah.
Like it's like whoa, like they're very like cocky in this respect, and he's probably just
Yeah.
laughing at them,
Yeah.
But
Did
it's good to
did you
be
see
humble.
did you see that video where this one guy was trying to cast the demons?
Yeah, he did the exorcism.
Exorcism.
Yeah, he did. He was trying to perform exorcism.
Yeah.
Maybe if he was given enough time, something would have.
It's so
I don't
stupid.
know.
I mean, I think like mashallah, I like TikTok, because you can see all these weird things that you never see in real life, Like
Yeah,
I was seeing this
it's
one guy,
almost like something you'd see, on a comedy skit, like or South
Yeah,
Park, or like
yeah,
Family Guy. I don't know. It's crazy.
yeah. I was seeing this clip of one guy, he was talking, and he was like a MAGA preacher or something, and he was talking. He was trying to convince people, in some kind of congregation, basically, that he says like, all these transgender people, he said they're actually demons, like real demons, like jinns. So
Really?
he said they're, yeah, he said
Oh, is this the same guy like trying to call to execute them or something?
I
Or
don't
no,
know,
that
but
was
I
another
just
guy.
saw.
I think that was another guy. He was calling for the execution of all homosexuals, which is like
Uh
very
huh.
evil of him
Yeah.
to do that, like say something like that. You're
Mhm.
supposed to talk these people out of it.
Mhm.
It's terrible.
Yeah, but saying like they're actual jinns, he says they come as transgender people, they like physically, like very physical. Subhanallah. I mean, thank God for
Wonder,
the guidance. God has,
wonder how he came
God
up with that conclusion.
has. Yeah, I sent you. Yeah. Subhanallah. I mean, yeah, crazy. Inshallah. I mean, God will fix everything. I mean, everything is, you know, in a mess right now. But God will, eventually, because submission is about to prevail, and God is not gonna let things the way they are. For submission to prevail, we know submission is gonna be the heart of. I mean, the United States is gonna be the heart of submission, and it's gonna be better than before, God willing. So obviously
Yeah,
people
because
learn from their mistakes too.
right, it has to, because like everything submission entails is, maximum freedom for the people, and then we know that God will, maybe this isn't the right word, but honor like nations, or maybe I can't think of the right word, but he'll
Make them
allow them
victorious.
to, victorious over others, the ones that recognize and honor
Believe in
me.
it.
So
Yeah.
believe in God, just like the
Yeah.
people of Jonah, and like all these other examples. How Muhammad, I guess he had his his town and his what would you call it, maybe his whole like he was victorious over all the disbelievers, and they ended up giving up, and they were became vastly outnumbered too.
Yeah, I think most people who basically fell for all of this stuff is, people who were duped with their religion. They use the religion to dupe most of these people, which obviously they don't have any idea what even the religion says about any of this stuff, right? They're just very ignorant people. But mashallah, God's guidance is very clear, on, like you said, on the believing nations, what it means. Like, um, read the appendix. What price good nation? What constitutes a good nation? A believing nation. What are the principles on which they're founded? Includes the values that God talks about. Mutual respect, and caring for the people. Being charitable. Um, helping people. Helping the traveling alien, helping the poor. It's and so of course, God will fix everything, inshallah. Mhm. Are there any other comments or questions from anyone before we conclude the study? All right, so thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Houda, for leading the study. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bless Islam.
Mhm.